Adding some more measures in 12.3 measures of central tendency and dispersion, we're going to be looking at mean, median, mode, and range, and that's going to help us describe some of the data we've already looked at. So that first question up at the top is kind of a different way to look at two different sets of data, and we're going to be later on comparing these kinds of sets. We might see that if I'm trying to choose between these two basketball players, they might have about the same amount of skill, pretty comparable, but we can see that one player is a little bit more consistent, and that second player has higher highs and lower lows, but is a little bit less consistent. We're going to figure out a way to measure that with some data. So we can use different measures, again, to interpret and compare sets of data, and one way to summarize that set of data is to use measures of central tendency. So tendency, a little bit different from dispersion. Mean, median, and mode are those three measures of central tendency we're going to be looking at. A measure of central tendency that best describes a data set may depend on whether the data has an outlier. Outlier is a data value that is much greater or much less than the other data value, so it should look kind of out of place with the rest of your data. So looking into those three, mean, median, and mode, the mean is the sum of the data values divided by the total number of data values that you have. So the mean is usually referred to as the average, so a lot of times I'll just say average in class. We're going to use the mean when the middle of the data set doesn't have an outlier. So again, if I don't have any values that stand out as being too high or too low. A median is the middle value of the data set. We've already seen that in box plots, and that's again when they're arranged in order. For a set containing even number of data values, the median is the mean of those two middle data values. And we've already seen how to find that middle using that box plot. We're going to use the median when we describe the set of the data that does have an outlier. So we've seen that an outlier doesn't affect the middle of your data so much when we're talking about median. Mode that we're adding in is a data item that occurs the most number of times. So a data set can have no mode, one mode, or more than one. Just depends on what happens the most often. So use mode when the data are non-numeric, so if you're comparing categories, or when you're choosing something that's the most popular item. So most popular happens the most number of times, it's going to be the mode. So trying to look for those three in our first set of data, which looks like bowling scores. We're also going to try and see which measure of those three is going to best describe the scores. So first of all, starting with, I guess we can start with mean. Again, that's the sum of all of the values in your data set divided by the total number of items that you have in the data set. So if I add all those scores up between those 8 bowlers, I found the total was 976. If I divide that evenly into 8 bowlers, that would be 122. Again, finding mean is just the same as finding the average. So add everything up, divide by 8 scores, and that gives you an average of 122. If we're finding the median, again, first thing we have to do, just like with our box and whisker plots, is to order them from least to greatest. So I took those 8 scores, put them from least to greatest, and since there are 8 scores, we have to find in between the 4th and 5th highest score. We have to take the average of those two in the middle, and that median ends up being 111. So also trying to find the mode. Mode is simple enough. We just have to look at what score happens the most often. So 104, 104, 104 appears 3 times. That would be your mode, is just 104, that score. So if we're also asked which measure best describes the scores, we would answer with median, because we see that it looks like we have an outlier, a score that's a lot higher than the other ones. Median is going to be a better descriptor because it doesn't take into account that outlier. 189 for a median purpose is the same as basically getting that 104, the lowest value. So now if we're going to consider those scores and not including the outlier, so if I got rid of the 189, the measure then to best measure the data would change. It would become the mean or the average, because you don't have any more outliers, and that could describe a little bit better about the middle of your data. So again, no outliers, you want to go with mean. If there are outliers, you would go with median. So you can also use an equation to find a value that you need to achieve a given average. So it's using that same formula that we just used to find the mean, except changing some things around. So let's look like your grades on 3 exams are 80, 93, and 91. What grade do we need on the next exam to have an average of 88 on all 4 exams? So we're still using the same type of formula. So last time, to find the mean or the average, we added all of those up and divided by however many scores they had. So if I plug in what I know so far, I know I want to end up with an average of 88. So in that formula, I'm going to substitute 88 in for the average. For the sum, I can just add the 3 scores that I already know, although there is one more score that we don't know yet. That's that 4th score that is unknown. But we do know there are 4 total exams, so we're dividing that by 4 to finish that average. So first thing is I added the 3 scores that we do know. So far we have 264 as a total. And now if I just want to find that last missing score, if I'm trying to solve for x, all I've got to do is take that equation and isolate for x. So using our steps from the first semester, got to multiply both sides by 4 to get rid of that fraction. And then if I subtract both sides by 264, that would isolate x, and we get that 88 would be my next score. So if I score 88 on the 4th exam, I would have 88 as the average for all 4 tests. So next question asks something similar, but it says if 100 is the highest possible score on the 4th exam, is it possible to raise our average to 92? And trying that same formula, again, this time the only thing that's changing is we want our average to be 92 instead of 88. So in the formula, I'm plugging in 92 for the average. We have the same 3 scores that we started with, and we still don't know the 4th score. We have to figure that 4th score out. So using those same steps, we're going to take that total, multiply by 4 on both sides to to cancel the fraction. If I subtract by 264 again, this time we see that we would need 104 on that last test to get a 92 average. So we know that if 100 is the highest possible score, and if we need 104 to get an average of 92, that would not be possible. So we can't score high enough on that last test to raise that average to a 92. So still using that same average equation, just trying to find a missing score instead. So we also talked about measures of dispersion in this chapter. So a measure of dispersion describes how dispersed or spread out the values in a data set are. And just really quick, you don't have to flip back to it, but looking at that first question at the start of the page, we noticed that player 1 was more consistent. Player 2 had higher and lower scores. That would be a good example of dispersion. So player 2's scores are more spread out. Player 1's scores are all pretty close to each other, so that would be a little bit less dispersed. One measure of dispersion that we can talk about is called the range. So the range in a data set is the difference between the greatest and the least data values. So if we're trying that with this example, if we have 2 companies, stocks in Alpha Company, first 5 days in February are 7, 4, 3, 6, and 1 for their prices. Beta Company prices are 24, 15, 2, 10, and 5. So if we want to find the range and the mean of each set of data, we can also use those to compare. Again, range would be dispersion and mean would be central tendency. So for range, again, that's just taking the highest value and subtracting the lowest. So for Alpha Company, highest value is 7, the lowest value is 1. Find the difference, and I just get a range of 6. To find the mean, it's the same process as before. So if I add all of those prices together, I get 21. If I divide by 5 total prices, that was an average of 4.2. Same thing for company B or company beta. If I take their highest price, that's 24, lowest price was 2, find the difference, that would just be a range of 22. Finding the mean, same thing, add all those prices up, I get 56. Divide that by 5 prices, that would be an average or mean of 11.2. So if we're going to compare the 2 stocks, looks like Beta Company both has a larger range, so they had a bigger difference between their highest and lowest value, and they also had a higher mean price. So looks like both the range and the mean were higher for Beta Company. So now if we're trying to analyze some quiz results, this time based on, looks like a plot, so we don't really have actual numbers for the data sets. Is the mean for Class C greater or less than the mean for Class A? And I guess, yeah, the scores from 1 through 6, scores from 1 through 6. So we can tell that the mean for Class C is going to be less than Class A because we have more scores that are lower in this range. And Class A, we can see it's more evenly distributed. Same thing for the median. If I was trying to find the median, it would be halfway in between basically for Class A. Although since Class C has some lower scores, your median, even though we don't really have to calculate it exactly right now, but it would be lower than Class A just because more of your data is off to the left. And that kind of helps us answer that last question. How can we tell which data set has a greater mean by comparing the graphs? So again, we don't really have to enter any of this data. We can tell just based on the graph because data values that have more values to the right, so since all of your higher scores are to the right, the more data you have to the right, the higher your average will be. So I see that if Class A is pretty evenly distributed, or you want to think symmetric from before if you're describing that distribution. Class C looks like we have more scores that are on the left side of that graph, so more scores that are lower, it's going to lower that average for the class. So you just want to be able to analyze a graph, see that if I have more value to the left, that would mean that our average is going to be lower. And last measure that we're going to talk about here, besides range, another measure of dispersion is standard deviation. So again, I'm going to use this to measure how far data is spread out from each other. Standard deviation is a measure of how data set values deviate from the mean. And deviate we mean by change from the average. So Greek letter sigma, and that looks like an O with a little squiggly over the top. That represents standard deviation. And capital sigma, so it looks like kind of a Greek E, represents the sum of a series of numbers. So I'm going to be using that as some shorthand in terms of our notation. X, when we use that in our standard deviation formula, because again, this is what I'm going to use to calculate standard deviation. That's the value of a data set, so just one value taken at a time. And we read this as X bar, so X with a little line over the top. So X bar is the mean of the data set. We find the mean the same way as before. And N in that formula that we're using is the number of values in that data set. So for practice, we're going to find the mean and standard deviation of this data set, or these two data sets, and we're going to try and see which one has a standard, higher standard deviation. So it looks like a lot to do with that formula. Again, it's some Greek in there. It looks kind of complex with a square root and everything. But this is a little bit easier if we break it down into steps. So I have my work shown for set A and step B. For set A, again, if we're going to try and make a table, because it tells us to use tables to help organize our work, first thing that I did to start my table is just list all the values of my data set. So don't really even have to rearrange them from least to greatest, just have to list them out. 4, 8, 5, 12, 3, 9, 5, 2. Those are just all the values in my set. So next category over, if I'm trying to fill out this chart, first thing we actually have to do that I skipped over was we have to find the average. So again, we call that X bar. Find the average the same way as we did earlier. So if I add up all the numbers in that data set, I get 48. If I divide by 8 numbers in that set, I get 6. So we find the average of that set is 6. And that's going to help us for the next step in our chart. For the next column in our chart, we're going to take whatever that data value was, we're going to subtract the average from that, and that's going to be what we're putting in our table. So if I take 4, I subtract 6, I'm going to put -2 in my table. Next row down, if I do 8 minus 6, I get 2. 5 minus 6, I get -1. 12 minus 6 is 6. 3 minus 6, -3. And so on to fill in that middle chart in the table. So you're just going to take that data value, subtract the average, and we're going to put that in the middle of our chart. Last step there is where it looks like I have X minus X bar and then I'm squaring that. All I have to do is take that value that we just got from subtracting the average, and we're going to square it. And what you have to remember here is that anytime you square a negative, it's going to become a positive. So -2 squared is 4, 2 squared is 4, -1 squared is 1, 6 squared is 36, and so on as I fill in that chart. So I take the square of every number in that middle column. And then for this bottom of the table here, again, we go back up a bit into that formula. We see that we're taking a sigma, so that means we're going to have to add together that last column. So if I add together all the numbers in that last column, so 4 plus 4 plus 1 plus 36, adding downwards, I get a total of 80. And that's going to help us in our formula because for the standard deviation, I'm going to take the square root of that total. So if I take 80, the total of the last column, divide that into the 8 scores that I had, that gets us square root of 10 for standard deviation. And for these, it's going to be easiest if you just estimate that with a decimal. So square root of 10, punch that into your calculator, you get about 3.16. I'm going to skip the steps for set B because it should be about the same. And one thing that you will notice is that if you do have a decimal for your average, it's going to make your table a little bit more complicated. You're going to have to do some rounding. You're not going to have nice even numbers that you can square like we did in set A. Although if you use some estimation, we can get, I think, eventually a standard deviation of 3.06. So that tells you that we had a greater standard deviation in set A, although it is pretty close. So again, what standard deviation is telling you is that the numbers are different from each other, a little bit more in one set than they are in the other. But again, we'll get practice with this in class, and make sure you come in prepared with any questions.